Once you have your design planned, you're going to go through the first few steps on day one working with clay. So the first step is tap. So you're going to use the tabletop to help shape the handle and the ends of your stamp. So you're just going to be using the table to kind of gently tap and shape and form the clay into the shape that you want it. So you're going to think about how you want the handle to look, how you want the ends to be. So one of my designs is a rectangle and one of them is an oval. So you'll see me using the table to kind of help shape those ends. And remember, we're going to be using those loop tools on day two, once the clay becomes leather hard, to remove excess clay. So I don't have to worry about making it too skinny right now. I just want to make it into the general shape that I'd like it to be. And here you see me pulling my designs over and just kind of checking for the general size and shape and making sure that when I stamp those onto the ends where those stamps will be, that they'll fit. Some of you might notice as you're rolling, especially if you're doing a round or oval design, that you might get a kind of a weird end where it sinks in. So just make sure to trim that off. Your next step will be mapping. So to map is to kind of think about the spaces on your handle where you're going to want to remove clay later after it's leather hard. So I'm just drawing the shape of the areas where I know that I'm going to kind of carve away a little bit of that clay tomorrow. So I'm putting some scratch lines through it so I remember that that's the place that I want to kind of carve away and remove. And that way it'll leave the shape of the handle that I would like to have. We need to remember that we don't want to remove too much clay because it could make the handle really weak and it could break very easily. So we want to leave enough handle there that it still stays strong and sturdy. And I decided just to sketch out my handle plan just so you can kind of see the areas that I removed and how that's going to look once I shape it. Our next step is transfer. So this is where we'll make sure that our marker has been traced over a few times so it's nice and juicy with marker juice. So there's a lot of marker to transfer. And then really take your time kind of looking from every direction and lining up your clay before you touch it to the marker. Because once it transfers, it's hard to erase it and put it in a new spot. So you really want to kind of check from every angle. You can't see what I'm doing here with my head, but I'm kind of looking to the side, looking behind, looking above before I set the clay down onto the marker where I want it to stamp. And then in order to make it stamp, we kind of want to push and wiggle it gently from side to side and forward and backward. Our final step will be to trace. So using that wooden tool, you're going to trace around the edges of where your marker is, because the marker is actually where we want to leave the clay alone. That's the place that's going to be raised up and will actually create our stamp design. And I'm actually tracing a little bit outside of the edge of my marker line just to make those lines a little bit thicker, because if I get too skinny with my details, they're very hard to carve. So I'm going just outside of the edges of my marker, and I'm giving myself a map. And the reason why it's really important to do this is because the marker will kind of disappear overnight. So you only have a short window to do this step. If you stamp it today and you don't get a chance to trace it, you're gonna have to re-transfer it tomorrow and start this part again. So it's really important to trace around your design because the marker will disappear. It just kind of fades away overnight. I don't know why. So make sure you trace around all of your designs so that it's just slightly kind of scratched into the surface and you know where your designs are and where you're carving.